Hello and welcome back to AEF TV in association with Engerati. I'm now joined by Paul Eardley-Taylor, who's from Standard Bank, and you run the sort of oil and gas section within Standard Bank. And we were talking a little bit off air about what's happening in the sort of oil and gas market in South Africa. And what are some of the and you were talking about Mozambique as well. What are some of the key points out of those developments that you're seeing?
I think the key thing is fundamentally we expect the energy landscape to change in Southern Africa over the next 5 to 6 years. And we've seen from the previous parallel of renewables where a sector has developed from nothing in plus minus 2 to 3 years and then changed the energy game. We expect the same thing to happen in oil and gas, specifically offshore gas in Mozambique, offshore gas in South Africa, shale gas and coal bed methane. So across the piece we expect this dynamic to change in the next 3-4 years.
Because there was a recent report about the sort of potential shale gas finds in South Africa, and the estimates keep yo-yoing from conservative to wildly optimistic. But when do you think that is going to come on stream? And then if it does come on stream in anything like the quantities predicted, what is it going to do to the market? What do you think that the effect is going to be?
I think the first thing is to work out whether the gas is actually there. Most third-party observers believe it's there. International investors believe it's there. So exploration wells need to be dug. Beyond that, the country needs to decide whether it's something that should be exploited and beneficiated to the benefit of everyone in South Africa. And once that's done, the decision then going forward, this is something that should take place over a sort of 3 to 5 year time frame.
And where do you see the whole? You said earlier on, and which is something I'd like to pick up on, is that you think that these finds, what's happening in Mozambique and everything, is going to fundamentally change the energy landscape. What do you mean by that? How do you think that is going to happen, and what's the manifestation going to be?
That's absolutely right. If you look at South Africa, the gas finds off the south coast in the late 1970s, a place called Mossel Bay, they had 1 TCF, a trillion cubic feet. What Mozambique have found over the last 2-3 years is plus minus 200 TCF, roughly speaking 50% more than the North Sea. Mozambique will have enough gas to export to Asia and beneficiate local resources for probably at least the next 50 years or so. So what you have next door to South Africa is a situation where a country is going through a once-in-a-lifetime dynamic, which is they found transformational resources and they need to work out how to do it and then how to contribute to global and also regional energy supplies.
So when you pick on something like that and you find, as a country, you find something like that, and if we can go into hypothetics for a second, and you said the word bonanza, it's like you found a bit of treasure, and you're now got to figure out how to spend that treasure, I suppose. Yeah, and you were saying, those reserves could be enough for Mozambique for 50 years. 50 years is actually not that long. How would you say that sort of bonanza ought to be spent so that when the 50 years is done and the reserve hits a depletion curve or whatever, that the country continues to have sustainable energy?
Yeah, you said bonanza, not me, but the key thing about gas is there's always a difference between oil and gas. Oil can be sold as it is. Once you've discovered it, you can sell it in the international markets. Gas always has to be beneficiated. It has to be transformed into another product, whether it's frozen in the case of Mozambique, or transformed into electrons and so on, and petrochemicals. What Mozambique basically has is, over the next few years, let's say 5 to 10, it is a choice about how it organises its economic interests, about how it wants to beneficiate the gas. And this is, from Mozambique's case, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which has been done elsewhere in the world, in the Middle East, Oman, Qatar and so on. Indonesia is another example, Trinidad and Tobago. And there are lots of opportunities around there of sort of learning from experiences that other people have gone before, to sort of develop and beneficiate the resources.
In your experience, what are the things that they should be looking at, which you know have worked, and some of the other things that, you know, look, I hope they don't go there, because it's not going to be a sustainable thing.
I think the most impressive thing about the Mozambican experience is how much they've got right so far. And what they have done is spent a lot of time on something that's called the gas master plan. In the jargon, it's, you know, you discover the resources, you work out how you want to use them, how much goes in a power plant, how much in LNG, how much in petrochemicals, how much in fertiliser. And this is exactly what Mozambique has done. And there's still a few details to work through. They still need to raise the capital over the next year. But so far, they've made a very, very encouraging start.
So they've clearly brought in the right advisors, the right people to utilise all of this. So if I can turn the conversation around to a more situational question, because we're at Africa Energy Forum. You've been here for a day and a bit now. If I could turn you into a reporter for a second, and what would be one of the things where you go, well, I'm really encouraged that this conversation is happening, or that I've seen this, and then the flip of that question is, actually, I'm discouraged that we're still having this conversation, or that issue hasn't progressed a little bit. So sort of two questions to throw at you like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coming on and off to this event since, say, 2007. The most encouraging thing to my mind is beneficiation. You know, throughout this period, more and more African countries are realising that their economic destiny is in their own hands. You know, they have the resources, whether it's, you know, from wind or solar, as the previous interviewer said, or sort of oil or gas. You know, they have the resources. It's all about mobilising them. It's all about utilising them. And more countries are realising that. And I think from our perspective, we're just happy to play a role in the growth. Yes, in all the markets, it could always be quicker. We want to play as big a role as we can, but we're encouraged by the continuous development.
And what are some of the things where you're going, I can't believe we're still talking about this, or we haven't solved this issue?
Well, again, one of the natural things you see in every cycle, and this also applies to Europe, is, you know, how you know, the election cycle works with infrastructure. This is something, you know, we see in the UK, we see in France, for example. There's always this sort of case of, you know, can infrastructure be developed more quickly, because politicians work to a time frame. And beyond that, we're generally encouraged by what's happening in most of our markets.
And well, that's one of those things which is very hard to decouple, especially when you're talking about energy. You've always got that political side of things as well. So I'm afraid we've sort of kind of come to the end of our time here. And thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for those insights. And thank you as well for watching. And more of these interviews will be on the AEF website as well as on engerati.com. So thanks again for watching.